evening, and thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. For the candidates, we're grateful that they had the ability to be here tonight. We appreciate the audience and those that will be watching this on TV or YouTube. I also want to state at the very beginning, this is not an endorsement of any particular candidate or party. And I need to have thank yous. The broadcast may be live tonight, and it will be on broadcast on Channel 68, Coast Communications Channel 68, and will be broadcast on YouTube as well. We want to thank Channel 68, North Beach TV, Daryl Prowse, Scott Johnston, Rick Beveridge, Dave Bunch, Janet, our timekeeper, who has saved us much, the Lions Club, Gary Johnson and Jeff Moyer, Voice of the Shores, Lynn Butefeld for the refreshments, and if you're at home, you're missing out on a good thing, I'll tell you. We want to thank the candidates and the citizens of Ocean Shores and all of our volunteers for tonight. And I don't have the coin tonight. And so my trustee, Vanna White, my assistant here, will be up here in a second.
Well, except I have my coins in the car. I thought you were prepared.
Okay.
Wait. Here we are. I have my SEAL Team 6 coin. I won't let me borrow.
Thank you. We're just using some time here. Thank you, sir. Okay. So, we're doing heads or tails. What would you prefer? Heads. Okay. It's heads. Okay, you get to start off by telling us about yourself and why you want this job. You've got 5 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who is here this evening. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces. That's actually one of the things that attracted me to Ocean Shores, aside from the beautiful beaches. When I was looking for a place to retire, Ocean Shores was the last thing on my mind until I came here in January of 2019 and I encountered so many nice people and this wonderful beach, and just it seemed like a great community, and it grabbed a hold of my heart and would not let me go. So in November of that year, my husband and I came up and we purchased a lot down on Ocean Shores Boulevard, intending to build. When that didn't happen, we bought a home and we moved in 2022, January 22, after the December snowfalls. My husband and I have been married for 47 years, and I'm kind of proud of that because we started out pretty young. And as you know, most couples who start out that young, and we're talking 17 and 19, they made it 6 months, some maybe 2 years, and that's what our friends gave us. So 47 years, we're still together, we're doing well. He is wholly supporting me in this adventure that I'm embarking on. The people of Ocean Shores have just been so open. They've opened their arms and welcomed me, and I've made a huge group of friends through the Ladies Society and through meeting with people for different things. And it's been an honor to have those people in my life. And through that, I've learned that not everybody's happy with how Ocean Shores is being run. And I decided, you know what? Maybe it's time I serve my city. Granted, I've never served on a city council before, but anybody who's ever sat in one of those chairs always had their never did it before moment. And I'm a pretty smart cookie. I can learn. And what I don't know, I'll research. I want people in this community to feel comfortable with coming to me and saying, you know what, I'm concerned about this. I have this question. This is going on in my neighborhood. And I want to be able to take those ideas and thoughts and concerns and bring them to my fellow council members and say, how can we solve this? What can we do? Let's problem solve this and see if we can fix this and solve this problem for the citizens and what they brought to us. So I want to be a hands-on and a door-open council member that will listen to you and listen to your voice and make sure that your voice is heard in the council chambers and throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I should have started this off. This is Caroline Emmert. It would be nice to have a name with the person. And Alison Cline, and they're both running for position number 4. That was a test. And it wasn't for me. And your turn, 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. For a lot of you, this is the 3rd time you've had the opportunity to hear Caroline and I speak, and so I am glad that you made the choice to come out and hear us again. I have been a homeowner in Ocean Shores since 2007. We started vacationing here with friends, and we decided we wanted to retire here. And so we purchased a home in 2007, made the permanent move in 2015. I started volunteering around town, getting involved with different organizations, getting involved with different activities that went on. And so I started, of course, going to school board meetings, city council meetings, and it's something I decided I wanted to be more involved than just volunteering. And so with attending city council meetings, I decided it's time. And so when John Martin was appointed mayor, I applied for his seat, and I was unanimously appointed to council to take that over. And I have served in that position since January of 2022. I am very passionate about Ocean Shores. We have done a lot of work, and I want to continue to work for the people of Ocean Shores. I listen to people, I talk with people in the community all the time. I have people call me, I see them out and about, and I hear their concerns. And does everybody have the same position on everything? No. We have people, you know, people that want to extend camping, people that don't want to extend camping. Different things. And so listening to all of those people and coming back and being able to take all that information, put it together, and vote for different things that come up through council. We've done a lot with the Oyhead Ditch, with the High Dunes Trail, with, excuse me, with getting some of our master plans done, looking at, you know, with our infrastructure. And those are things I want to continue to do. And so I decided, you know, when the time was up and it was time to run to keep the seat I was appointed to, that I wanted to do that. I have been working with all members of council. I've worked on different ad hoc committees with each member of council, and we've always been able to work well together and to problem solve. Is everybody going to agree 100% of the time on everything? No, but we're able to work through those decisions that we're making and problem solve and find solutions. And so what I am hoping is to retain the seat and be able to continue to work for the people of Ocean Shores.
Thank you. So you started. So Allison and you, Caroline, started with the coin toss. So Allison,
I get to pick the first
you get to pick the first question. In the fishing creel that my husband has not used. What can be done or offered to entice new business to open in Ocean Shores? You have 3 minutes.
Oh, this is me first.
That's you first, you pick the card.
Okay, well, we have had a lot of new businesses come into Ocean Shores. We've had the Acre Thrift Store. We've had quite a few restaurants with our new Italian restaurant, with our new Mexican restaurant that just opened. And so we have a lot of new businesses. And I think one of the things we have to do with the marketing is to continue to market Ocean Shores to bring in more businesses. We have had, we had a Chamber of Commerce that we all know ended up not working out well. I know there is a group that is looking at starting a small business association. I think that's a group that could work in promoting new businesses, also being a part of Greater Grace Harbor. And so there are opportunities out there. And like I said, we've got a lot of new businesses, and I think we're at a point to just keep growing. I mean, we've got the food trucks coming out with the hot dog food truck came out, and now he has opened up a spot here in town. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to still come, and that we can continue to promote Ocean Shores as we have, and get more businesses here.
Thank you. Caroline, what can be done or offered to entice new businesses to open in Ocean Shores?
Well, one of the things that Allison mentioned, and I've heard from businesses here in town, is that we need a chamber. And yes, I understand there's history and people are leery of promoting a chamber of commerce, but a chamber of commerce does more than just try to bring in new businesses. They're there really to support the local businesses that we have, to encourage them to grow, and to encourage them to intermix with each other and help each other and support each other. A chamber could go a long ways towards making better and more use of the convention center. I looked at the calendar, and between September and the end of December, there are only 6 events that are listed in the calendar for the convention center. That's a lot of downtime that's taking place for a building that should be fully utilized to bring in revenue to the city. And it can be a business association. I've been part of a business association that migrated into a chamber. I think they're very good for helping businesses. We should look towards maybe other types of industries that could come in that maybe are not service-oriented, but maybe more tech-oriented, where people can work from a business location, work from home, encourage those types of businesses to come in and use some of the buildings that aren't being used, or better utilize some of the buildings where people are struggling to make sure that they can even pay their lease. And I see one of the struggles in this city is that a lot of the buildings are run down looking. And that's not the fault of the business owner at all. That's the fault of the missing person who owns the building, and they don't live in the city, so they don't have the same buy-in and the same care. The business owner is paying a large lease, and they expect that the owner of the building to be able to maintain it, paint it, keep it up, make it look good, and whatnot. So I think a chamber of commerce really is our strongest avenue of encouraging businesses to grow and helping our economy.
Thank you. It's your turn.
There's a lot of them in there, aren't there?
Just for you. The city chat. The current city chat sessions, usually held on the first Wednesday of each month, are well attended. Would you consider these city chats, and if so, would you make any changes to the format? And will the 3 on council member format be included in that?
That's mine to answer, right?
It is.
So I remember when I first moved here, one of the things I went to was the mayor chat, the city chat. And I thought it was a great way of having conversations with the mayor and actually being able as a citizen to ask questions and talk to and get answers. And so I did attend a number of those. The last one that I recall being held was regarding the blue zones. And it seemed like the focus changed of the mayor chat or the city chat from an open discussion, question and answer period to, we're going to bring in a presentation and we're going to present this, and you can have maybe 10 minutes at the end of that to ask questions or make comments about that. And I thought that that was kind of a weird direction to take that. As far as going forward, I think they're great for citizen engagement, and we absolutely need citizen engagement. We need to hear from all of you. I also think that a town hall style of meeting should be used for when something major is coming up, so we can inform the citizens that this is happening and this is what the council's talking about, and let's get some input from the citizens. I think if that had happened for the Proposition 1, the police department, which I agree, we need a new police department, but if we had engaged the citizens more and maybe talked to some experts in the field and found, other solutions, we could have come up with a viable option to have a new police station built. But, so as far as the city chats, I think they're great. I think that city council members should be encouraged to be part of that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Allison, the city chat, the current city chat sessions, usually held on the first Wednesday of each month, are well attended. Will you continue these city chats, and if so, would you make any changes to the format, and will the 3 on-council member format be included?
I would love to see the city chats continue. I think it's important when there are issues that we're able to bring in people that can give us information. We've had the blue zones, we've had people from the water department, we've had people on erosion, and I think those are very important to have. I think there also needs to be more back and forth conversations. When you have like a 1 hour, I think city chats is 1 hour, and then you have just a few minutes to have that back and forth conversation with the presenters. I think we need more time for that. I would love to see, and if I do keep this seat, I would love to bring back what former council members did, having the council chats, where 3 members would get together once a month at the convention center, and citizens could come in and just have back and forth dialogue. And I think that's really important. I love the town hall. Bill, I know Catherine, I believe, headed up a town hall on medical a few years ago, and those types of things. That was a great way. She had presenters come in who gave lots of great information, and the audience was able to ask questions. And I think that's important, that not just have somebody coming in and saying, here's a bunch of information. Well, I know when I get a lot of information, I have a lot of questions about the information I just got. So I think it's really important that we create a setting to where we can have that back and forth engagement. And like I said, I would love to do the council chats where we can have 3 at a time, because I attended a lot of those and got a lot of questions answered. And I think that needs to be back in place for us.
Thank you. It's your turn to pick. Nothing up my sleeve. I heard the only doctor at Seymour is retiring soon, and they have no plans to replace him. Should our city government get involved in helping to bring health care to its Ocean Shores taxpayers, residents, and voters? What would you recommend we do?
I believe we have got to do something. We have to do something to get medical services here in Ocean Shores. Right now, our fire department is our urgent care, and they're too busy. And we need to look at what's out there for grants, what is available. I would recommend, if you have not done the Harbor Hospital survey, to please go online and do that survey, because they are asking questions about services that you receive through Harbor Medical and Regional Harbor Medical. And it's really important that they hear from the people of Ocean Shores. We say all the time, we need your help, we need you to do something. We're paying into that. They need to step up and provide for the citizens here. And I think we need to research, see what's available for grants out there, see what type of funding is out there, possibly partnering with other groups to try and bring some medical here for our citizens. One of the things also we've talked about with our homeless and the mental health, we don't have the services here to support our residents who need it. And we need to do that. And we need to research and investigate and find money to be able to do that.
Caroline, I heard the only doctor at CMAR is retiring soon, and they have no plans to replace him. Should our city government get involved in helping to bring health care to its Ocean Shores taxpayers, residents, and voters? What would you recommend we do?
This is something that I've been involved in pretty much since I moved here, trying to get at least, the very least, an urgent care clinic. And it's like pulling teeth because you have people who are supposed to be advocating for us and they turn a deaf ear to anybody who says, what about us? So what about us? Ocean Shores is growing. We're getting more populous all the time, and it's not just retired, it's not just low income. There are a lot of younger people, empty nesters, who are moving here because they can work from home, and they're bringing with them their own unique medical needs. We must have some sort of urgent clinic at the very least, because she's right. This fire department, it's very limited in what they can do without some sort of an urgent clinic. And we as citizens need to be engaged in this, not just the city council. As citizens, we need to care about this, and we need to step up and say to that Harbor Regional Health, how could that Elma City, who is so much smaller population-wise, get that beautiful Summit Pacific building and hospital, and we have nothing. And I've seen on the sign outside of that building that it was partly funded by the Department of Agriculture. So why can't we as a city go to the Department of Agriculture and say, hey, we need something like that here. What grants do you have? Find out what grants are out there. Find out, go to large medical facilities, Vancouver Clinic, Sacred Heart, any of these large medical providers, and say, look, there's a huge citizenry that is underserved in the medical facility, medical range. Help us, please. Come and bring us better healthcare, because what we've had at CMAR has been subpar, substandard, and yet people are stuck with going to CMAR.
Thank you. It is your turn, Caroline.
Okie dokie. Which one do you like? Oh, you are one. You gonna be here all night, early girl? Only one. Like Noah, only two.
You've heard this before. What is a councilmanic bond or a councilmatic bond? And would you approve the use of this method of finance, and what would be the highest dollar amount that you would allow under that funding?
Okay, well, a councilmanic bond is basically a limited general bond that the city council can approve. So it'd be up to the city to decide what the limit is. Like the city of Seattle has a limit of 1.5% of whatever the appraised valuation of the project is. So it wouldn't be up to me as a council member to say, well, I think we should go ahead and make, proof out. No, it would be whatever percentage that we would set. The councilmanic bond is actually something that's to be paid back, not necessarily through direct taxes like the Proposition 1 bond would have been, but through the general fund. So I think we would need to be very careful with that, to not use that and I think for me, it would be a very, and it's limited, it's a very limited thing. It would be a very limited option for me to even suggest, because I wouldn't want to be taking from the general fund and putting any surplus at home. So,
Okay, thank you. Alison, I know you haven't heard it before. What is the Councilmatic bond or Councilmatic bond? And what would you approve the use of this method of finance? And if or what would be the highest dollar amount that you would authorize?
Well, this question's come full circle. The first time we heard it was July 19th at the Elks, and a lot of people, not just the three of us, but a lot of people sitting in the audience didn't know what it meant either, so a whole lot of us did a whole lot of research after that forum. And Caroline explained what it is exactly right. But the thing is, it's only extreme emergencies. Luckily, Ocean Shores hasn't had that, but I'm not going to sit here and say never, because you never say never. But I think it's something that if it does happen, and it would have to be a very extreme emergency for us as a city to do that, to do a bond. And that is it. You are basically taking a loan from yourself, and it has to be paid back. And so that would take a lot of discussion to do something like that. And hopefully we won't ever have to, but in case it's not just, loosey-goosey, willy-nilly spending, it has to be extreme circumstances to use that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I believe it's your turn. And please only one. Okay. Thank you. What would you propose to help Ocean Shores grow economically?
Well, one of the things we have to do is question we had before. What are we going to do to bring businesses here? Our population's growing. There's no doubt about that. But we have to look at what do we need to do to bring businesses here. One of the things Caroline talked about that I think is a wonderful idea, how do we encourage technology? I was talking with Matt Buchanan, and that was one of the things we talked about, is bringing people who work in the field of technology, who are able to work from home and do those types of jobs. And that can bring people here and boost the economy here.
Thank you. Caroline, what would you propose to help Ocean Shores grow economically?
well, we're back to the chamber again. That's part of it. Part of the economy, I think, a lot of it has to do with having enough activities and interesting things for people to do to bring in people that are going to spend their money here, because that is a big part of our economy. The tourist people who come, the RV people who come and go out to dinner or buy things in the shops. That's huge. Go to the bowling alley. They want things to do. I see using our convention center more widely for a lot of different varieties of events and really marketing those events out so that we bring the tourists in, because tourist dollars are huge. And I'd love to see things happening through the winter so that our businesses here aren't struggling so hard through the winter season to bring people in, to create events that will have tourist people coming in and having fun and say, you know what, I went to Ocean Shores last weekend and it was so much fun. They had this going on. They had that going on. We can do this. There are people out there that have ideas of events and things we can do to make it fun, not only for the people who live here, because I like to have fun, but for the people who come in and enjoy our city and go home again. And they tell their friends and they tell their family. This was fun. Let's go do it again.
Thank you. And the other one.
They stick together. They like each other. Got it? Okay.
Thank you. Let's not spill the beans.
Spill the beans, as it were.
Changing to a regional fire authority, the city council budgeted $50,000 in the current 23-24 biennium to study the feasibility of changing from a city fire department to a regional fire authority. What are your views on this change, and do you see it happening in the future?
Well, I'd like to see the study. I'd like to see the completed study. I don't know that they've actually gotten it or if it's still budgeted. But from what I understand, I believe Aberdeen and Hoquiam also were looking into that, and it didn't go over very well. I think pooling resources is actually a good idea, because this is a big burden for a small city to have this viable fire department. And I think it's a good fire department, but I think pooling our resources and having it all working together in a region-wide, I think that's a pretty good idea. But again, I'd want to see the study before making that my final determination.
Thank you. Allison? Changing to a regional fire authority, the city council budgeted $50,000 in the current 2023-2024 biennium to study the feasibility of changing from a city fire department to a regional fire authority. What are your views on this change, and do you see it happening in the future?
I think it's a great idea. It, like Caroline was talking about, pooling our resources. Aberdeen and Hoquiam tried it, it did not pass. And, they have their reasons. I have not seen the study. I don't know that the study has been done. It is budgeted. It would be beneficial to not just the people of Shores, but also to the people who live outside, where they have just their volunteer fire departments. So I think it would be a great thing to see it happen. I don't know if it will, but it would definitely something that once the study's done to really look into it and see what the possibilities are.
Thank you. I believe it's your turn. I am concerned by what appears to be a lack of consistent enforcement of our traffic laws. I see speeders and wrong-way drivers on Ocean Shores Boulevard regularly. They are asking what you would like to do about it.
I would love to be able to hire more police officers, for one. I mean, Ocean Shores is kind of spread out. They say it's not that big, but there is a lot of territory to cover. And when we have 2 officers on duty per shift, that's a lot of territory they're trying to cover. I have seen wrong way on Ocean Shores Boulevard, and I have seen wrong way on Point Brown. The 4-way stop at the Shiloh, I think something needs to be done there, because that's where I see a lot of people ending up going the wrong way, and that's kind of scary. And so I think there are things we can do as far as, I don't know if I want to say this or not, but a roundabout possibly, better stop signs that say do not stop in the middle of the intersection. I mean, really, how many of us have sat there and said, keep going, you don't have to stop? And so I think just with some traffic things, but really what it comes down to is we need more police officers to be able to control and to enforce those things. And I am glad to see they've been restriping and getting that done, and they should be redoing the roundabout because that needs to be restriped. And so moving forward, but I think the big part of that is going to be having more police officers.
Thank you. Caroline? I'm concerned by what appears to be a lack of consistent enforcement of our traffic laws. I see speeders and wrong-way drivers on Ocean Shores Boulevard regularly. And what would you propose?
Well, if the budget doesn't allow for adding more police, which would hopefully be an answer, getting the police out there, the presence, and people say, oh, they're patrolling now, I better slow down. I think I've seen one officer on Duck Lake Drive the whole over year and a half I've lived here. He was on the side road the other day. I don't speed on Duck Lake Drive, it's 30, and I try to go 30. But I went past him and I went, oh, look at that, he's actually out here patrolling Duck Lake Drive, which is a very busy road. People do speed on it, I live on that. They speed on Dolphin, they speed on Canal. And with that new sign thing up that says your speed is, well, now people are making a game of it and come running up, let's see how fast I can make that thing say I'm going. That didn't solve anything. That four-way stop at the Shiloh, the more busy we get, the more interesting it becomes, because people don't know exactly, okay, I got here, he got here, who goes. They don't realize it's the same kind of four-way stop that you have on just a standard road. They do stop in the middle. I was noticing one of the signs as you're pulled up to the stop sign in that middle thing there points that direction to public parking. Well, if you're here going south and Chan-Salamir and you see that, oh, well, I can go left here. So that kind of is confusing. Maybe one solution is to look at our signage and see if we could put better signage up there to be more clear. I know not everybody reads signs, they still get lost, they still turn the wrong way, they drive the wrong way on the beach. And I noticed today as I was coming up Shoal to Point Brown, and a car in front of me went across to the middle, and then they turned their right turn signal on and started turning towards, I'm like, wait a minute, where are you folks going? They realized what they were doing and turned to the left and went over to the Dollar General the other way. But it's confusing at times. The roundabout can be confusing when you have two lanes going this way, and then all of a sudden we've lost one lane because if you really, maybe we need to look at the arrows on the roundabout and make it so you don't have two lanes coming around that meet right there when we go into the IGA. You know, for every problem, there's a solution, and that's what I want to do, is figure out with the other group of council people, how do we solve this? This is a concern. Obviously, it's a big concern. Let's solve it.
Thank you. Okay. I'm Caroline. The South Fire Station renovation. Renovating the South Fire Station was budgeted in 2021-2022 biennium budget to cost $420,000, equally split between the fire department budget and the emergency care budget. The most recent estimate is nearly double that amount. Is the South Fire Station a priority for you, and if so, how will it be paid for?
I can definitely see a need down there. I know how long it takes me to drive from up here down to our property that's down near the jetty and going the speed limit, and it feels like I'm never going to get there. For people who are having either a medical emergency or a fire, heaven forbid, in their home down at that end of the peninsula, I'm sure it's an interminable wait for the fire people or the EMS people to get from this station up here down to that end. And I commend them for the speed with which they do get there. But I see a need to have that south station down there. The cost, I don't know, because all of a sudden here through COVID, everything went expensive. That's why we don't have the home we wanted. Our cost tripled over the home we wanted. So I understand about the costs going up, but I also think that if we wait and try to figure out more than one way, I know someone has mentioned modular manufacture, there are some restrictions around those. There has to be a way to make this doable and workable, whether it's revamping the building that sits down there or keep that there to use for the storage that it's being used, and build something new that's going to suffice to hold the equipment and the personnel that would be needed to serve the people in that area. The other thing to look at with this, though, is where would we then need a divider line to say if a call comes in and the person is south of here, it gets served by that, or if it's up here, it gets served by that. You know, there would have to be some sort of division of territory to say which one is going to go answer the call, because you don't want to send the wrong one out. So anyway, that's my take on it.
Thank you. Your turn.
Okay.
And you have to listen to me read it again.
It's okay.
South Fire Station renovation. Renovating the South Fire Station was budgeted in 2021-2022 biennium budget to cost $420,000, equally split between the fire department budget and the emergency care budget. The most recent estimate is nearly double that amount. Is the South Fire Station a priority for you, and if so, how will it be paid for?
Yes, it's a priority. Our population is growing on the south end, and we need to be able to provide those services to people. I know there had been talk about possibly doing a prefab building. Yes, it has to meet codes, but prefab houses, I mean, if you look at how those type of houses have come along over the years, I mean, I've seen prefab houses that are way nicer than some that are stick-built. And I think that is a possibility and not as expensive. And I think we need to research and find a way to be able to do that, because people there need those services. Yes, logistics will have to be worked out. Where is the divider line? What fire station serves what citizens or what territories? And we have to be able to make sure all those people get those services, and that the building is going to meet the needs and the requirements for the firefighters and paramedics who will be stationed in that area. I think it is something that needs to happen, and hopefully in the next budget that can be done, because there was a lot of talk, and I talked with a lot of council members before I got on council about the fire station, and I was kind of bummed when it went away from the budget, but I think we really need to look at putting that in there.
Thank you. Alison, it's your turn. There have been many instances when the Ocean Shores Municipal Code, or the OSMC, has been vague or out of date, posing enforceability issues. Considering that certain sections of the OSMC have remained untouched for over 2 decades, recognizing that code constitutes a significant element of the council duties, the question of modernizing and enhancing its legal coherence becomes essential. What would you do to facilitate that?
Yeah, it's time. The municipal codes need to be looked at, they need to be reviewed. A couple things that can be done is that the staff, the city staff, looking at the codes that they deal with, what is their top priority? What do we need to do? And focus on those right away. I think possibly to get through all of this in a reasonable amount of time, that someone will need to be hired to be able to guide through that process. Because, like you said, some of them are over 20 years old. And things have changed, and we need to get things updated. We've been doing a lot, but there's still a lot to be done. And I think with working with the staff and what are the priorities and the things that need to be changed right away, getting that taken care of, and then moving forward, having someone, and I don't mean waiting 2 or 3 years before we get somebody to do it. I mean like now, January. Getting someone hired who can start looking at all those codes and going through them and rewriting them to where they are appropriate for our city for now.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to, I stumbled on one word. I'm going to fix it this time, I promise.
I feel bad even making you reread it.
Cline. There have been many instances when Ocean Shore's Municipal Code, or the OSMC, has been vague or out of date, posing enforceability issues. Considering that certain sections of the OSMC have remained untouched for over 2 decades, and recognizing that the code constitutes, if I got that right, a significant element of the council's duty. The question of modernizing and enhancing its legal coherence becomes essential. What would you propose to help that?
It's a pretty big document, our municipal code. I've spent some time in it, reading through some of them because I had questions on my own. And yeah, there needs to be dedicated staff, whether we have staff on hand, staff that can read it and kind of understand what it's saying and what its intention is, and bring that to the attention of the city council. And I also see it as something that you as citizens can certainly do that. If you're reading something in the code and it's unclear to you or it's vague, by all means bring it to your city council and say, does this make sense to you? Can you make sense of this? At the Saturday forum, somebody in the audience was asking if it's the job of the city or the city council to educate citizens on the codes, on the laws. And while some might think that's a reasonable question and a reasonable thing to expect of a city, I go back to, if you commit a crime and you tell the officer, gee, I didn't know that was a crime, he'll tell you ignorance of the law is no excuse. So it's up to the citizens to be looking at the codes and understanding them, how they apply to you and your daily living. And if it's unclear, bring it to the council. Yes, some of them are pretty old, some of them are outdated, and need to be updated into more modern language. But your help with that would be huge and instrumental in taking care of that, along with staff, along with the city council.
Thank you. It's your turn, Caroline. A subject close to my heart. Oyahut Ditch. The current city plan is to clean it up and then maintain it every 2 years. But the cost for the work being done now to clean the ditch comes from one-time federal grant, ARPA money. This revenue source is not available once the current grant is spent. How will you pay for this maintenance?
So at first, I'll admit, when I moved to this city, I was not aware of the Oyahut Ditch, and I had to do some research to even understand what it was and where it is and how critical it is to our infrastructure. It is critical, and it has been, and many people have said it's been neglected for a long time and allowed to become unusable, pretty much. And the ARPA funds will be very helpful in getting it cleaned up, getting it ready, getting it to where it's usable. I say we're going to need to be looking for more grants. We're going to need to maybe maintain it more often than every 2 years, if that's what it takes. Public Works can be involved in that. We can get possibly the Conservation District, which we've recently become part of, could provide methods of providing funds to help maintain that. There's always a way to find some money. And because that's the funny thing about money. A friend of mine told me decades ago, it's only money, there's more where that came from. And he's kind of right, because if you really, really, really want to accomplish something, there are ways of finding the funding. And it doesn't have to come out of your pocket and your pocket and your pocket or my pocket. There are all kinds of grants, and yes, those are tax monies too, but they're not all tax monies. Some grants are actually privately funded grants. We have a grant writer here in town. She does a good job. The Conservation District has access to grant writers. Let's take advantage of those and see if we can find ways to pay for this and keep it maintained and not let it go to pot like it would happen.
Thank you.
Alison? Whitehead Ditch. The current city plan is to clean it up and then maintain it every 2 years. But the cost for the work being done now to clean the ditch comes from one-time federal grant ARPA money. This revenue source is not available once the current grant is spent. How will you pay for this maintenance?
Excuse me, the Whitehead ditch was big. We, on our fresh waterways, out of 1.5 million, approximately 1.2 million of that went to cleaning the Whitehead ditch, which feeds is the main feed into the Grand Canal, our main stormwater drainage into the ocean. The stormwater master plan was last done in 1995. It is something that needs to be updated. The stormwater going into the fresh waterways, and we need to get that out and not let that happen. The fresh waterways master plan can get grants. We got to have the plan before we can go for the grants. I think there are grants out there, partnering with the Conservation District. We have lots of potential there for finding money. Sarah, our grant writer for the City of Ocean Shores, does a great job finding money. But before you can go for grants, you have to have the plan. And I think that needs to be a priority, is for us to get a master plan for our waterways and continue to keep working on them so that we're able to get it cleaned up and keep it cleaned up. Not just the Whitehead ditch, all the waterways.
Thank you. Alison, it's your choice. We could be here all
I
night,
know. They're all
like the rabbit in the hat. I am seeing many building lots stripped bare in violation of city code. Do you believe we should be enforcing our law codes? And what would you do to assure taxpayers that this is happening?
Yeah, me, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, the codes.
I'm looking
need-
at both of you so that.
Yeah, the codes need to be enforced. I think we have someone now who is more on top of that than in past years. I think also having the bond that people have to put up if they're not getting things taken care of and replacing the landscaping, I think it's important to have that in place. And I believe that with that, that is going to encourage people, because you can't get your certificate of occupancy until you've taken care of the landscaping. And I know if I were clearing a lot and building a house, I'd sure want to be able to move into it once I build it, so getting the landscaping done. And I think that's going to make a big difference.
Thank you. Caroline, I'm seeing many building lots stripped bare in violation of city code. Do you believe we should be enforcing our law codes? What would you do to assure the taxpayers this is happening?
Well, yes. Why have a law if you're not going to enforce it? That's what I've been telling people, because like speeding, well, we know they're going to speed, we just don't enforce it. We know people are going to light off fireworks in the city, we don't enforce it. Then why have the laws? We got these codes, we have these codes, we need to make sure that we have a way to make sure that people are understanding their code, understanding what the requirements are, understanding what their permit requirements are when they get a permit, that they know what's expected of them as they clear their property, and what needs to be left, what can be taken away, and how to mitigate any loss of the foliage that they really should keep on their property. I'm sure I would have dealt with this had we gone ahead and put our house on the piece of property that we own. We would have made sure we understood the codes, made sure that our builder and our excavator understood the codes and knew exactly what they were supposed to do and had the right permits and got things done timely. That's just being a responsible citizen. Code enforcement is dicey in this city, because right now we have one person who is supposed to be responsible for all of it, and he can't be responsible for all of it. So we do have an opening for code enforcement, for somebody to partner up and take up some of the slack. But what happens when you've got somebody violating any of the codes that we have for our city and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You've got somebody out there causing a ruckus. You have to call 911 and get the police involved. Maybe they can't get there. So you've got some issues and things going on. And how do we solve this? Do we, again, hire more police to have more police present? Do we get 3 or 4 code enforcement officers in the city to make sure that, and what about people that are violating the codes? Are there repercussions for this? Are there fines in place? There are so many different solutions to these things. We just need to come together and talk about them and come to an agreement on how to solve it and move forward with that.
Thank you. And it's your turn, Caroline.
I'll just take whatever's on top here. Is there only one? And you're looking at it.
Oh, it's terribly long.
Okay, as long as it's not a 4-parter.
It's 7.
Okay, the answer is 4.
Do you think it's okay for elected city officials to be going into our businesses and making threats against business for political reasons? Why or why not?
Well,
Yeah, it is.
it's unprofessional behavior to go into a private business, for anybody to go into a private business and talk to the young people that are working, the old people, anybody that's working there, that they don't own the business, they don't own the building. It's unprofessional for anybody to do that. It's not classy. Come on, just don't do it.
Do you think it is, thank you very much. Do you think it is okay for an elected city official to be going into our businesses and making threats against a business for political reasons?
Absolutely not. That's it. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't think it needs an explanation. Absolutely not.
I didn't put any paste on any of them. Allison, should the city designate further funds to improve and maintain our fresh waterways? And how would you propose to fund this if you said yes?
I think we need to look at going for the grants to be able to get the money to work on our waterways. We have a great group of people who are trying and working their hardest to get them cleaned up and keep them clean. There are grants for climate-affected areas, of which Ocean Shores is a climate-affected area. And with the erosion and all that we have going on, I think there are grants available out there. Do I want to increase your taxes to clean up the waterways? Absolutely not. I don't want to increase my taxes. But there are grants and there are funds out there and available, and it still comes back to you can't go for the grants till you get the master plan done. And so I think that needs to be a top priority of council, is to get that master plan prepared so they can go after the grants and the funds to get them done. Because our waterways were swamps and they're just trying to go back to what they were. And it takes a lot of work to keep them clean.
Thank you. Caroline, should the city designate further funds to improve and maintain our fresh waterways? And how would you propose to fund this if you said yes?
From what I understand, the city council has designated a pot of money to hire a waterways expert to actually come in and look at the waterways and help us with developing that plan, because I agree, we need a plan in place before then we go after the grant money, whether that's with the conservation district or some other avenue. Yeah, let's hire some experts to help us, because not everybody in the city, even though we live on the waterways, some of us live on the waterways, we're not experts on how to take care of it. We don't know whether we can go out there and start pulling weeds on our own. We don't know until we start asking, and then we get told, instead of being told, oh, don't pull the weeds, they'll come along and spray them and kill them that way. But they don't want to kill them that way. So yeah, let's hire the expert company that knows what they're talking about to come in and help us develop a plan to go forward and keep them maintained and keep them clean and keep them flowing. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Your turn.
Oh, I felt like I just drew that. I just mark this over, bring it down. Okay.
Do you believe that Ocean Shores code enforcement officers should wear sidearms while on duty?
Well, I know a friend, I had a friend who was code enforcement in a big city. She carried a firearm, but that was a big city. I understand the history of Ocean Shores, that a previous code enforcement officer was threatened, and that was the reason why they decided to authorize the firearms. My concern is if the code enforcement officer is using it as a power play against people. And that's what I wouldn't want to see happening. And I would want to have ways of reporting it and investigating it if we find that that's what's happening. I'm sure that there are times when it can be dangerous. It just needs to be not a power play.
Thank you. Allison, should Ocean Shores code enforcement officers wear sidearms while on duty? Please explain.
Interesting question. A code enforcement officer, like any other officer, if they're abusing their weapon, they should not be allowed to have it. Pure and simple. If we have code enforcement officers who are abusing that, then they shouldn't be carrying it. Just like any police officer in any town, any city, any county, if they are abusing their firearm and using it as a power play, they should not be allowed to have it. And if that happens, there needs to be an investigation done and possible termination or legal action. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. It is your turn. Whoops. Sorry for the person who's wearing our ears. Do you believe ethics complaints against city council members or the mayor should be held in the public or behind closed doors as currently happens here? And if so, why?
It is up to the person who has the ethics complaint filed against them as to whether they want it public or not. They are clearly entitled to have it public, or it can be an executive session. It is up to the person who the ethics complaint is filed against. And I believe that's fair. If that's what they want for it to be public, be public. If they don't want it public, then it's not.
Caroline, do you believe ethics complaints against city council members or the mayor should be held in public or behind closed doors as currently happens here? Why?
I would be in favor of a citizen committee to review ethics complaints and investigate the ethics complaints. I think that the way it currently is, it's like a group policing themselves. And if one of them has done something wrong, I don't think they don't necessarily take it as seriously as they would if there was an outside group. I don't know about public flogging, which is how I would compare it, bring it out to the public, and public flogging. But I would definitely be in favor of setting up a committee of folks with integrity who can look at it objectively and determine, was there really a violation of ethics? And then decide, what's appropriate. What you have to figure out what an appropriate consequence is, because if you do something wrong, there should be a consequence. So that's my take on how it's handled.
Well, this actually is a second parter, and
Of course.
it's not a gotcha. What would you say about reconfiguring an ethics complaint review committee with electives and council, or citizens and in that committee?
Honestly, I don't know. It's something that I think could be talked about and looked into, but I'm not going to sit here and say, I think it should be this way and this way only. I think it's something to look at and something to have a discussion about and see how it moves forward.
Okay, thank you. And I think, let's see, what would you say about reconfiguring an ethics complaint review committee comprised of citizens and electives?
I think that would be a compromise to be looked into. I think that may be a viable solution. Then you don't have like I already mentioned, citizen review, citizen committee, and with the understanding that the citizens would also have to understand and be knowledgeable of the ethics required of the city council, because you wouldn't want somebody to say, well, I think that was unethical. You'd have to understand what makes something unethical.
Thank you.
Are we there yet?
How do you feel about the number of Airbnbs in Ocean Shores, which it appears to be over 300 units? There's several parts to this, and I'll try to not make it be like it the last time. I just want to read through it. Do they pay into the LTAC fund, and should they?
Is that all of it? Okay.
We'll get started.
Okay. How I feel about the Airbnbs. Most of the ones we stayed in were in the condos. We've stayed in a few houses at the southern end. I don't think I've ever seen 300 come up on the Airbnb map, but I never counted. So I can't say for sure that there are that many. This is like the RV lots, it depends on who you talk to. Well, Airbnbs are fine, but I wouldn't want one next to my house. Or, yeah, I wouldn't mind an Airbnb next to mine if people want to make money on it. It's 50 different opinions for 100 different people. As the LTAC, I don't know. I can't see why they wouldn't be required to pay some taxes in, but I don't know. And it's something I can certainly research and find out. That would be one of my thoughts of, if you allow Airbnbs in, more of them in areas and rezone and reconfigure things to allow more of them, that would be one positive reason to do so, is if it brings more revenue into the city. But without having that assurance, that takes away one of the good reasons of allowing it. So that I don't know.
And
There's not a three-quarter.
we'll go through this part first. How do you feel about the number of Airbnbs in Ocean Shores, which appears to be over 300 units? Should they or do they pay into the LTAC fund, and should they?
I'm shocked to hear there's that many. Airbnbs need to be in the correct zone. If they are not, they should not be allowed. They should have to still, they should be responsible for paying into LTAC. It's putting heads in beds, same thing. It's an Airbnb, not a hotel, but it's still lodging. And so there needs to be rules, regulations. It has to be in the right zone, and they should pay into LTAC because that is exactly what they're doing. Same thing, just smaller version. And I see nothing wrong with Airbnbs, just like with the camping. You know, do you want an Airbnb beside you? Do you want a camping lot beside you? There's pluses and minuses to everything, just like there's pluses and minuses to the people who live in the house next door to the house you live in full time. So I think I am shocked of over 300, but I still think that they should pay into LTAC and that it needs to be regulated, just like with the hotels.
Okay, thank you. The new police station. What priority do you place on the construction of a new police station, which failed at the ballot box last November, or to receive necessary support? If it's a priority for you, what steps will you take as a mayor to move this, or mayor or council member to move this project?
We just got promoted.
Yeah, you did. You did. Mayor or council member to move this project forward.
Yeah, we absolutely have got to do something for a police station. Clearly, the bond that we ran failed miserably. Okay, time to go back to the drawing board. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Are we going to look at a possible existing building? Can we take the property we own on Anchor Avenue where offices are? Is there something that can be done with renovating that building? I mean, I'm just throwing ideas out here. That can do for a police station and building a small town hall where the current police station is. Do we look at building something in another part of town? We own the land across from the Polynesian. But I think to do that, we need to bring together a group of citizens along with city staff to look at, and especially with our police chief, to look at what are the needs, what do you need, and how can we get there and get something built that's going to last, not something that we're going to need to update 3 years down the road. I know when the fire department was built, it was a lot, well, this is way too big for Ocean Shores, and now it's at capacity. So, am I saying we need to go out and build a huge Taj Mahal police station? Absolutely not. But we need to think about with the growth that we're having here. But I think we need to have community involvement. We need to put together a citizens group working with city staff and the current police chief and department to put that together and move it forward.
Thank you. Caroline, I'll refresh your memory. New police station. What priority do you place on the construction of a new police station, which failed at the ballot box last November, to receive necessary support? If it's a priority for you, what steps will you take as mayor or council to move this project forward?
It is a priority. I support the police. I think that they're vital to our community, to our safety. The building is old, it's temporary, it's served its purpose. We need a consortium. We need a group of citizens with knowledge to come together with the city and staff, like Alison was saying, and come up with a plan and come up with a viable option. We could possibly put together a city hall police station combination, and therefore all the city meetings would no longer need to take place in the convention center, freeing up the convention center to bring in more revenue. There might be grants out there for that. I don't know. I do know that it needs to be a conversation with citizens and have citizen input. There's at least one architect company that I know of that has designed community buildings that are pretty amazing. And they've done it and they've built them for a lot less than that $12 million that we were shooting for. I think if we garnered the citizens to be part of the solution and come up with the ideas and come up with a plan that's going to be more affordable, we'll get buy-in from the citizenry to do this.
Thank you. You do. You get to put.
I'd much rather be singing every day.
Water concerns. Some citizens have concerns regarding the city's water quality. A study session was recently held and several action items were identified. In your opinion, are the identified action items sufficient or are additional actions justified, and how would you propose resolving citizen concerns from this point?
I'm very blessed. I'm not having the issues with my water. We use it to cook, make coffee. I drink my water out of the refrigerator. It has that extra filtering. But I understand from being around and meeting with a lot of you folks that that's not the case for every household. That's not the case for every area. And we do have people with compromised immune systems, and we have people who are having health issues because their water isn't the best it could be. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's better than it was 25 years ago before we put in that water treatment plant. Well, sure, it's better. But does that mean that there are issues that we need to find out? Regina was here. She was talking about a lot of different things, a lot of the testing that they do. But there are certain chemicals that we don't test for. There are certain things we don't test for. Maybe we should look at testing for all of those things in a sampling of neighborhoods where the water issues are occurring, where this black slime is occurring. Again, working with the citizenry, making sure, and yeah, the city is finally saying, yeah, we hear you. There's a problem with the water. But I don't think they've done enough as far as ensuring that there aren't issues with the water in the areas where they could test, and they haven't yet. So, and Department of Health doesn't require all these different tests. That maybe not the manganese, maybe it's not this that's causing it, maybe it's not a lack of chlorine in somebody's house. I don't know. Again, working with the citizenry and coming up with a solution so that we do have appropriate water to drink and use for their animals and use for cooking. And you shouldn't have to buy. I buy this and I keep refilling it with my refrigerator. You shouldn't have to buy water to have in your house just so that you have good, clean drinking water.
Thank you. Allison, water concerns. Some citizens have concerns regarding the city's water quality. A study session was recently held and several action items were identified. In your opinion, are the identified action items sufficient or are additional actions justified? And how would you propose resolving citizen concerns from this point?
The plans of moving forward and other things to do as far as flushing hydrants more. What they found is where there were dead-end hydrants in some of the cul-de-sacs that the water wasn't moving through those, or an area where there are a lot of houses that water's not used every day. When you have a house, if you have a street and you have 6 houses on that street, 4 of those houses, people come maybe once every 4, 5, 6 months, that's going to cause an issue. And I think what needs to happen, anybody can get water tested. You can call the water department. I think we need to continue testing for the chemicals, testing to see what may need to be adjusted. I know with the chlorine, you don't want to start putting too much chlorine in it, or then you feel like it tastes like you're drinking a swimming pool, and none of us want that. So I think it's an ongoing thing that they need to continue trying different things, looking at what needs to be done, what can we do to make it better, because all of us should have nice drinking water. I'm lucky. Mine is way better than it was when we bought our house in '07. But it's something that continually needs to be worked on. And like I said, I know I have talked with people at the water department. They've said anybody can have their water tested. All you have to do is call, they'll come, they'll test it, get you a report, and see if anything they can do with what they find in the test results.
Thank you. Engineered outdoor structure. Controversy over the use of the engineered non-brick and mortar structures has surfaced as a result of the city wanting to have ocean pours to remove their only sufficiently met building fire. I just skipped a line, I'm sorry. The result of the city wanting ocean pours to remove the only such structure in town, even though it is sufficiently met building fire, water, and storm codes to receive the permit. The city council needs to reopen this issue and work towards changes to the municipal code to permit engineered structures. If all federal, state, and business zone codes are met, would you propose to do that?
If a structure meets all of the building codes for a permanent structure, I have no issue with it. If it doesn't, and I know with ocean pours, it was done as a temporary structure. If it's something we need to look, we've talked about looking at, planning commissions looking at zoning. Do we need to look at ordinances? Are there things we need to do? And I think it can all be looked at. But you can't say this business doesn't have to meet the codes for a permanent structure, but this business right next door does. So I think we've got to come up with a solution that's going to meet everybody's needs. And I think that can be done.
Thank you.
You don't need to read the question. I've heard it. Right now, there's a lot of controversy in our city. There's a lot of division in our city over the structure that is at Ocean Pours. I know when I first started coming here and it was first put up, I thought, wow, what a cool idea. What a really excellent idea. It'd be great if they could keep that up because it added to the quality of the business, it added to the character of that area from my perspective. I liked the idea and I liked that it was built, as I have found, to the International Building Code specifications, that it's perfectly safe. Whatever issues that they had within the structure, they've solved them. Yeah, from a code perspective, if it may be within certain requirements and fitting things and fitting for a temporary structure. I think where the controversy is coming in is in people being led to believe that it could become permanent, and that's causing the division in the city, and it's a real shame to see that taking place verbally and on social media. This is not something you can moderate and solve through social media. This is a planning commission solving thing. This is the city council that needs to come together and determine, is this structure viable? Is this structure really something that can be maintained permanently? And then change the codes to allow it to become permanent. I see that as a positive thing because maybe another business, maybe somebody comes and buys that little Moby Dick business and wants to put something similar out in their grassy area. This would set a precedent to allow another business to expand in a way that will be uniform throughout our city. I don't see people throwing up pop-up tents and setting up a business. That's not what this is. This isn't like a pop-up tent. This isn't anything like the one that was at Pirates Cove that took up all their parking spaces out front. And it was half the time uncomfortable because the wind would whip through the gate and you didn't want to sit out there anyway. This is a viable, strong, engineered structure. And I don't see a problem as a citizen with this business being allowed to keep it. And I don't see a problem if I'm elected to the council being an advocate for finding a way to help them do that. I think it's good for business.
Thank you. Thank you. You're almost done. Almost. How do you justify and prioritize? Example, interest rates are climbing. We have the city water issues for some constituents. The backflow regulators that will impact business and homeowners. Hiring more employees, the fresh waterways issues that will cost, and that will cost millions. The new police department, and you talk of sidewalks. How's all this going to be paid for?
Well, it's definitely called priorities. Prioritizing, finding out what's more important. Is a sidewalk more important than a new police station? Maybe not. But is a new police station going to be viable and economically sound from a taxpayer perspective? If it isn't, you compromise and you work through things and you say, this is a high priority. Can we pay for it now? Can we budget for it in the next budget go-round? Is this something we're going to need to take to the voters to vote on, like the police station we did? It's problem solving. Every single one of these is problem solving and saying, you know, we've got 50 things. You've got 50 things in your own personal household budget you want to accomplish, and you're limited with the funds that you have on hand. What are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, this month I'm not going to do this. I'll wait and put it till next month. And that's how you work it. It's a grander scale, but it's the same kind of principle. What can I do now? What's a small step that I can take care of now to solve all of these goals that I want to reach? And how do we prioritize and how do we budget and how do we develop and plan so that we can go for the grants and have the grant money available to us when we reach the time where we've got to that goal and we want to do that goal. Thank you. That's a lot of stuff to be on the list, you know.
This wasn't my
I
list.
know, their list.
Yes.
It's a lot of things to tackle.
Allison, how do you justify and prioritize? Example is interest rates are climbing. We have the city water issues for some constituents. The backflow regulators that will impact business and homeowners. Hiring more employees. The fresh waterway issues that will cost millions. The new police department, and you talk of sidewalks. How is this going to be paid for?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you do have to prioritize. The council needs to sit down with staff and the council during their retreat when they're coming up with the projects and they're prioritizing what are the most important things to look at for the next budget. And that is really important and has to be done because you can't do everything at one time. You've got to look at what are the most important things. I think our water issue is a priority for those people that are having problems with their water. That has got to be a priority. And then you look at what are the things, sidewalks. Are there grants available for sidewalks? The waterways. Are we able to get that master plan done that's been budgeted for already, get the master plan and then go looking for those grants to take care of the waterways? The police station, getting together your citizen committee along with staff members, police officers, and moving forward with that and looking for other opportunities and monies that are out there. The cross connections, how is that going to affect our hotels? Any of them that possibly would have to pay a huge amount of money. How are we going to support them, and what are we going to do with that? And how can we help them? So we have to look at all of those things and prioritize and look to see where we can find funding to assist with any of those.
Thank you. No, ma'am. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you. You're both very passionate. You talk a lot with your hands, and I haven't been hit once. I really appreciate that. I do appreciate that. If elected, do you represent taxpayers? What will be your guiding principle applied to your decision-making process when voting on how to best spend those tax dollars?
So if I'm elected, I am working for everybody in this town, not this group or that group. It's for everybody. Okay, I'm done.
I'm sorry.
I have sat here, I have watched people laughing in the back and having conversations. I have watched this. I'm done. I am here to talk about what I want to do for this town, and that kind of stuff it's so not okay.
It's not okay. It's not.
And I'm done. I'm done. I love to say that I will not tolerate the stuff that has gone on Facebook, and the questions that have been put forth here tonight are not okay. And those are not going to be I'm sorry, but I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And shame on you.
That was truly unexpected, and it's a shame. I am sorry that we had asked the audience not to make comment. I guess go ahead with your last 5 minutes.
That was disappointing, that it ended the way it did. Yeah, I've seen some people making faces. It's difficult for us up here. We're not doing this for us, folks. We're doing this for you, because you're the ones we want to represent. You're the people we care about. You're the people who are entrusting your money to us to make sure that we take care of your best interests. I want to cry for Allison. I feel bad for Allison because this is hard. It's hard for us to ask questions. We have no idea what's coming. Although some of them were asked in a former forum, a lot of these were new, and we have to be off the cuff with our responses, folks. And we need you to be grown-ups and take care that we have the opportunity for our voice. The next opportunity is going to be the Friends of the Library at 12:30 for me and Allison, and I hope this doesn't scare her off from that. She and I have been grown-ups through this whole process. We've been kind to each other. We have been caring to you and to each other. We've ran into each other in town and laughed and talked. You know, if it was any other time, I think that woman and I could be friends and put all differences aside. And that's what I'm asking you folks. Put your differences aside. Come together as citizens, as one group of people who love their city and want the best for their city. Please, put aside your differences and put the ugliness away. It's time. And that's all I have to say. And thank you all for being here. And now I'm done.
So again, I'd like to say that to Tonight, this is not an endorsement of any particular, excuse me, could we have the volume down in the audience? This is not over yet. This is not an endorsement of any particular candidate or party, but I am so grateful that the candidates chose to be here tonight. And they did ask hard questions, and they did know, some of the questions had been asked before, they did not know all of them. And they were gracious in attending. This broadcast was live, and we want to thank you. It will be on Channel 68, and it will be on YouTube. And we want to thank North Beach TV, Daryl Prowse, Scott Johnston, Rick Beveridge, Dave Bunch, Janet, our timekeeper, that we worked the heck out of tonight, the Lions Club, Gary Johnson, Jeff Moyer, Voice of the Shores, Lynn Budefeld for the refreshments, the candidates, and the citizens of Ocean Shores, and all of the volunteers that helped us get to this point tonight. We thank you, and this will be the time that we will go for meet and greet. Thank you again for attending.